Any paraglider you fly, whether it's for paramotoring or for paragliding, should be tested, rated, and certified. When you fly a certified glider, you'll be at peace in the air knowing that the quality of the equipment that you and your loved ones are entrusting with your life is going to get you down safely every time. So here's the first of several requirements for your first paraglider. Ensure that the glider has been tested and certified by the EN standard. Long before any certified glider becomes available to purchase, several pre-production versions get shipped over to Europe to undergo a brutal series of tests. During the shock test, the glider is connected to a tow truck using a long rope that's connected to a weak link that's designed to brake between 1,700 and 2,600 pounds, depending on the specific maximum loading of that wing. A small crew holds the leading edge of the paraglider up while the truck accelerates to about 50 miles per hour. When the slack in the rope runs out, the glider receives this instant shock and the weak link breaks. Finally, the glider gets closely inspected, and if there wasn't any amount of damage, the glider will have received a pass for the shock test. Next up is the load test. Once again, the tow truck is used, but this time the glider is connected to the top of it, while a skillful pilot operates the glider's controls to keep it stable as the truck drives down a runway. An instrument measures the force of lift being generated by the glider, which of course far exceeds what the glider would ever experience in a real-world scenario. Specifically, the glider being tested must experience a load that is 8 times the maximum takeoff weight for that glider. So for example, the BGD Magic motor in the size medium-large has a maximum takeoff weight of 293 pounds. So during the certification process, we know that this specific make, model, and size survived a sustained load of at least 2,344 pounds. That means that if a hippopotamus somehow managed to get airborne on this wing, it'd survive, so long as it didn't do any sort of like barrel rolls or other high G maneuvers. Finally, there's the flight test, and during this seemingly terrifying yet enlightening experience, a professional test pilot puts the glider through its paces. His checklist includes 23 scenarios that assess the glider's behavior during different types of collapses, stalls, and dives. The glider's behavior in response to these 23 individual maneuvers will receive a rating of either A, B, C, or D based off of how the glider behaved. Once testing is done, the glider will receive an overall rating based on the worst individual rating that it received. Meaning, if the glider received an A rating on every maneuver except for one where it hypothetically received a B rating, the overall rating for the glider would be a B-rated glider. Knowing this rating system can help you with your decision on which paraglider is most appropriate for you. ENA is beginner rated, ENB is intermediate, ENC is advanced, and END is competition rated. And since this video is aimed towards individuals looking to purchase the best first paraglider for them, we arrive at the second requirement. Ensure that your first paraglider is an ENA beginner rated glider. Before moving past this very important point, I want to acknowledge that some people will recommend that you start out your flying career with an ENB or intermediate rated glider. The argument is that by skipping the beginner wing, you'll be able to save some money by investing in a paraglider that you won't quickly outgrow. And to be honest, I did just this. My first paraglider was an ENB rated glider, and I survived. But hindsight's 2020, and I'd be arrogant to assume that luck wasn't responsible for me being here to make this video for you. Moreover, in the last few years, the #1 cause of death in paramotoring has changed from water landings that resulted in a drowning to miscalculated maneuvers performed at low altitude. For more information on how people get killed in paramotoring and how to avoid becoming a statistic, check out this video. Without a doubt, there's a correlation between a glider's rating and a glider's performance. But the next requirement that needs to be met when choosing your first paraglider has an even greater effect on performance than what I just covered. Ensure that it's the right size. Every glider comes in different sizes. Some manufacturers like BGD Paraglider simply labels them with the traditional small, medium, and large, while others like Dudek and Ozone have a numeric size listed in meters squared. For example, the Ozone Mojo comes in the size 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30. When purchasing your first paraglider, it's more important than ever to get the right size because the wing's loading affects the glider's performance. In aerodynamics, wing loading is the total mass of the aircraft divided by the area of the wing. In paragliding, you can increase your wing's loading either by increasing the amount of weight suspended from the paraglider, or you can decrease the size of the paraglider. Let's pretend that Leandra here is ready to purchase her very first paraglider. After asking the pilots in her local paramotor community which glider is ideal for her as a beginner, she decides to go with the BGD Magic motor since it's certified, it's rated for beginners, and as an added bonus, it's a hybrid, meaning she can use it for free flight paragliding, which is something she believes she may want to try out further down the road. At this point, all she needs to do is figure out what size to order. So she whips out her phone and types in BGD Magic motor, and it takes her to the manufacturer's webpage with almost everything she needs to know about this specific glider, including what sizes she can get. Notice how I said can instead of should. That's because a pilot's weight plus all of their equipment will be within more than one of the sizes of a specific glider. Leandra weighs 130 pounds. Her clothes, including boots and helmet, weigh about 10 pounds. The paramotor she bought weighs 55 pounds. She knows that she'll usually take off with about 2 gallons of fuel, which is around 13 pounds. Her reserve parachute weighs about 4 pounds. She also needs to account for the weight of her paraglider, which is around 10 pounds. After adding them all up, she now knows that her total weight is about 222 pounds. But since paraglider weight ranges are recorded in kilograms, she'll need to do a quick conversion.
Casey, how many kilograms is 222 pounds?
To find out, her takeoff weight is 100.7 kilograms. Armed with this new information, she finds within the specs section of the webpage the weight range for the BGD Magic motor when used for paramotoring. This is the DGAC weight range that you see here. DGAC, FYI, is the French Civil Aviation Authority, kind of like the United States FAA. Just below that, we see the free flight weight range, but since Leandra primarily wants to fly using her paramotor, we'll focus on the DGAC weight range. What she finds is that with her 100.7 kilogram total weight, she actually falls within 4 of the sizes: the small, the medium large, and the large. Which size is best for her? Let's take a look and find out. When the glider in question is the same and the only variation is the size, the larger size will be less loaded, have a slower required takeoff speed, fly slower, respond slower to your inputs, and be more prone to collapses, but it will recover with less altitude lost if the glider does collapse. When a pilot is more heavily loaded, the glider flies faster. It forces more air into the cell openings of the glider, making it so solid that he could fly into some really rocky air without the glider taking a collapse. The lighter the loading is, the less pressure there is to push against and provide support to the interior walls of the glider. So if you were lightly loaded, you would be more likely to take a collapse in rowdy air. On the other hand, the smaller size glider will be more loaded. It'll have a higher takeoff speed. You'll fly faster, it'll respond faster to your inputs, and it'll be more resistant to collapses, but it will use up a little bit more altitude to recover if the glider does collapse. Regardless of where you're at within the weight range, so long as you are within that weight range, you can count on it recovering from a collapse so quickly that you didn't even have a chance to see it happen. Still, it should be noted that the heavier you are within the weight range, the more resistant it will be to a collapse. The elevation of where you intend to do the majority of your flying is something important to consider as well. The higher you are above sea level, the thinner the air is. The thinner the air is, the faster you'll need to run to get off the ground during takeoff. Landings at higher elevations will be faster too. To compensate for the thinner air, pilots can opt for the larger glider since the increased surface area will generate more lift than the smaller gliders when moving at the same speed. So, where is the best placement for you on the weight range of any given glider? I generally wouldn't recommend purchasing a glider where you're obviously very close to the minimum or the maximum weight limits. In regard to the minimum weight limit, the glider's handling often feels too mushy. You may get frustrated with how sluggish the glider is to respond to your inputs. New pilots may want to stay away from the upper limits of the weight range since they may feel uncomfortable with how fast and responsive the glider is. If your physical abilities are above average, you desire a glider that's somewhat more responsive to your inputs, you'd like to fly a little bit faster, and you anticipate flying from a field that is less than 1,000 feet above sea level, purchase a certified beginner-rated glider in a size that will have you in the upper half of that weight range. If you're not the spring chicken that you used to be, you don't want to run quite as fast to get in the air, and don't necessarily care how fast you fly through the air once you get there, or perhaps you're moderately fit but fly from a field that's a couple thousand feet above sea level, get a certified beginner glider that has you in the lower half of that weight range. If you want a little bit of both, you wouldn't be wrong in getting a glider near the 50th percentile of any given weight range. Don't be fooled by anyone who claims any paramotor or paraglider is the best, especially if they're counting on you to buy it in order for them to make money. I learned how to fly paramotors on the certified and ENA-rated Ozone Mojo, but when my wife and I opened up our flight school, we decided to purchase several BGD Magic Motor paragliders because I found that its inflation characteristics and its handling in the air to be ever so slightly better than the other ones that I've flown over the years.
So far, I'm really enjoying this glider.
But really, it doesn't matter, and my preference is simply subjective. Regardless of what you get, so long as you get it from a trusted brand, I can assure you that you're not going to care once you're up there in the air. People often ask me if they should get a new or used paraglider. I have mixed feelings about this, and generally, my recommendation would be to go with a new one, assuming you could swing the $3,600 price tag. Occasionally, a used paraglider will hit the market for a good price, and you may have an opportunity to get your hands on a beginner wing that's around half the cost or better than a new paraglider. Every once in a while, I'll see them listed on Facebook. If you don't have any luck there, check out my current inventory of used equipment. The link will take you to my page where you can see photos, videos, and a detailed write-up that covers everything you'd want to know about the item. I pay for the shipping on new and used gliders, so the price you see is the price you pay. To sum it all up, when choosing your first paraglider, make sure that it's certified, beginner rated, and that it's the right size for you. Don't get too caught up on the brand. So long as the company has a good reputation, you'll have the peace of mind in knowing that the company has your safety and enjoyment as their top priority. And if you can't afford a new paraglider, scan through your local classifieds or check the link in the description for a great deal on quality used gear. To keep learning more about paramotoring, make sure to hit the bell so you know whenever I post a new video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Hey Siri, how many pounds?
God.
Hey Siri, how many kilograms? So we can have